Testing.
Okay. So, yay. We're doing philosophy and the Bible. You are only going to have 2 classes, this class and the next class for philosophy for the term, the 4th term, and then it's going to carry on into semester 1, which I think all y'all will be done, correct? Yeah. This is everybody's 4th semester, I think, besides Sister Tabitha, right? Correct. Okay. Just checking. So you guys are only going to get like a layover of philosophy. So let's go to class overview. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it like building a house. Our foundation is going to be truth. Then we're going to have the framework as worldview. We need to know what the world thinks and things like that. Bye, Nathaniel. We don't, in my personal opinion, I think we need to know how the world thinks, the ideologies of the world. Not to run from them and to hide from them under a rock, but instead understand it and understand the fallacies in their views. And so that's going to be our framework to this class. God's going to be our center pillar. The evil that's involved in the worldviews and things that are very anti-God will be cracks in the wall. Our ethics is how we live inside of it. And then the purpose of why our house even exists in the first place. So let's go to what our classwork and objectives will be for our class. This course explores the relationship between philosophy and the Bible, helping students understand truth, worldview, God, suffering, ethics, and purpose. Students will learn to think critically, biblically, and confidently about life's biggest questions. By the end of this course, students, which is you, will understand key philosophical concepts, how they relate to Scripture, develop a strong biblical worldview, defend their faith with clarity and confidence, and apply biblical truth to real-life situations. If you've ever done outreach or witnessing to a friend or a neighbor, you probably have had those philosophical questions. Well, why is there bad in the world? Why would God allow evil? What happens after death? Those kind of questions are very philosophical. So our hope is to be able to answer those with confidence. Okay. So, origins and history of philosophy. Before philosophy, there was a world of myths. So this is pre-600 BC before Christ. Before philosophy existed, people explained life through myths, legends, and many gods controlling nature. So thunder, okay, it's the god of thunder. He must be showing himself. An ocean, an angry ocean, okay, the god of the ocean's mad. Suffering, okay, well, I guess the God of my health is mad, and things like that, which they were kind of heading in almost the correct direction, like there must be a God, right? But giving a plurality of gods was the issue. Oops. Go back. Perfect. So the pre-Socratic philosophers. Thank you. This is hard. When I had to do a presentation for one of my classes, and when you probably understand this, when you're trying to name like neurons and like certain pathways and stuff, they're like so hard to pronounce, and you're just like blah 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 blah. And I had to, before doing it, I was at home talking to my dog. I was like, okay, listen to me, like let me practice this on you first. And it was just so embarrassing. Anyway, so back to what I was saying. The first 3 that we're going to cover is Thales of Miletus. This was the first known philosopher. He believed everything came from water, which is very interesting, and tried to explain the world using reason instead of myths. So there's that. Hercules, who believed everything is always changing. You cannot step into the same river twice. I agree with that. You don't step in the same river twice, right? Because the river is always moving. And then there's Pyramidas, who said change is an illusion. and reality is unchanging. Do. No, I'm just kidding. So, I mean, obviously, I'm not agreeing 100% with what they're saying, but I understand the reasoning behind it. If we look into it, for instance, everything came from water. Okay, interesting. I see where you're getting that from. Everything came from water, according to the story of creation. The world was covered with water before land. Okay, maybe. All right, I see where you're coming with that. Obviously, he's not reading the Bible. It wasn't around then, but I understand. Then the other Herculetus saying things like, everything is always changing. Okay, interesting. You cannot step in the same river twice. Not wrong. Okay, interesting. I understand where your logic is coming from. So do you see how it's like, okay, you kind of got a half truth. So what about the other side of the truth? So now here's the turning point, was when Socrates entered the chat. He lived from 469 BC to 399 BC. And he lived in Athens, Greece, one of my favorite cities ever. Very cool. His occupation was a philosopher, though he never called himself one formally. And fun fact, he did not write any books. There is no written ideology from him, which is very, very fascinating.
So what do we have from him?
Well, I'm about to say. Yeah. Everything we know comes from his students, especially Plato. How interesting is that? His work was just verbal. So we got him, and he's a big, big deal. So let's go over him, because he is known as the father of philosophy. He was a Greek philosopher, lived simply and taught through conversations, wrote nothing, known through Plato for most of his life. What he did was ask deep questions about truth, life, and morality, challenge people's belief, and expose contradictions. Use the Socratic method, learning through questions or questioning things. What he believed was truth is objective. People must examine their own lives, and the unexamined life is worth nothing. Why does this guy matter? Why are we learning about him? He shifted philosophy to focus on human life and ethics, influenced future thinkers like Plato and Aristotle. In his death, he was executed for corrupting the youth, and he died for pursuing truth. Fun fact, he died by drinking poison. They made him drink poison to end his life. Crazy. No, I'm not going to do that. Oh my gosh, this is a church. All right, we're going to learn about one of his students, Plato. He was truth beyond the physical world. So Plato lived from 427 BC to 347 BC. Who was he? He was a student of Socrates. He was a Greek philosopher from Athens and founded the Academy, one of the first schools of thought. Excuse me. What he taught, reality is more than just what we see. The physical world is imperfect. True reality is eternal and unchanging. His key idea was called the theory of forms. Perfect forms or truths exist beyond the physical world. A perfect idea of a circle exists even if there are none in real life. So, for instance, if I was to ask each and every one of you to draw me a circle, it's not going to be perfect, I'm assuming. Would you say your circle is perfect that you draw? Anybody in here? No. But a perfect circle does exist, correct? So, what he believed was truth is absolute, not based on opinion. Okay, interesting. Knowledge comes from reason, not just senses. Why does he matter? Because he preserved Socrates' teaching. We wouldn't have Socrates' teaching without Plato. And he shaped Western philosophy and thinking about truth. So that's very interesting. Have you ever had an idea in your mind that reality maybe couldn't really match? Like you're thinking of something, what maybe God could do, and you're like, I don't really see that as being reality. That's something just to ask yourself. These lines up with something very powerful. So for instance, like heaven, we can think of heaven, right? But are we able to see heaven right now? No. What about God's perfection? Are we able to actually envision that here in reality or experience that here in the reality and now? Not really, no. So it's very interesting that Plato was pointing upward. He was pointing at something that Scripture ultimately does confirm what is up there, but he was already asking the questions. Keep that in mind as we move on to Aristotle. Aristotle, his main focus was reason and observation. Okay, that seems more scientific. Are you able to observe it? Can you repeat it? That's the scientific method. So reason and observation, if we can have reason and we can actually observe it in the natural world, does it exist? Is it correct? So Aristotle, he lived from 384 BC to 322 BC. So who was he? He was a student of Plato. He was a Greek philosopher, also from Athens, and a teacher of Alexander the Great. Oh. What he taught was he focused on physical world and observation, believed that knowledge comes from studying reality, what we can actually touch, see, experience with our senses. Key contributions. He developed formal logic, rules for correct thinking. So he had rules to how we should be thinking about things, studied science, biology, ethics, and politics, created systems for organizing knowledge. So he was pretty much saying, let's get practical about our thinking. No more of like this, oh, it kind of can flow with this. Maybe it's that. I don't know what reality is. And start saying, no, it has to be more concrete. Let's get practical. Let's study the sciences. Let's study the things that we can observe. And let's use logic to make decisions. For instance, if you wanted to understand trees and how they grew and their lifespans and all those things, you would go and look at a tree that you can actually see and experience. That was his mindset. So what he believed was he could discover things through his reason and observation. The world is understandable and ordered. Why did he matter? Why is he so famous? Because he laid the foundation for modern science and logic. He balanced philosophy and practical thinking. What do you think is more important? Plato's idea of thinking deeply? Let's think. Let's go into ourselves. Let's think about those things. Or Aristotle, who believed in observing reality. So we have on one hand with Plato thinking, think about it. Just process it, go deep, ask yourself those questions. And then you have Aristotle saying, okay, let's go and observe reality. What about those two? Which one would be more important if you could choose between those two? What do you think? Plato, thinking, Aristotle, observing. What would you think in your own opinion? Observing, okay. Yeah.
I feel like there's a ditch on each side, though. I feel like if you think about things too much, then you get into all of like that theoretical stuff, and that's where, honestly, where sometimes like psychology and all that stuff kind of tends to go a little bit crazy. But then also just relying on your observations, then, you know, if by that point of view, then we wouldn't really even believe in like a higher power because we can't see.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. So we do need both, but if you had to choose between the two, ask yourself, what would I choose? It's a hypothetical question. The correct answer is both, but to ask yourself, thinking deeply or observing, which one would I choose? So how can we bridge this to the Bible? Well, in Romans 1:20, it talks about creation showing God. Truth is both revealed and observable. So, knowing these three main philosophers, let's have a philosopher's battle. These are actual photos of them wrestling, believe it or not. Yeah, crazy. So Socrates, he asked questions to find truth, used the Socratic method, focused on ethics and how to live. He wrote nothing and died for challenging beliefs, versus Plato, his student, believed in absolute truth beyond the physical world, developed the theory of forms, founded the academy, and focused on reason over senses. And then we have Aristotle. He was a student of Plato, focused on observation and the physical world, developed logic and scientific thinking, studied ethics, science, and politics, believed truth is found through reason and experience. So, with the person sitting next to you, you have to decide who you are going to be. If you're by yourself, you can go to somebody, or it's up to you. Do you take on Socrates? Are you Plato, or are you Aristotle? Go ahead. So Socrates, he was focused on asking questions, deep questions. Plato, he believed that you had to, believed in absolute truth, beyond the physical world, thought deeply about things. And Aristotle said you have to be able to absorb in the present world. So, if you could choose, who would you be? Emery.
Oh, like right off the bat?
Sure. After all those things, which one would you, just for fun, just for kicks?
Okay, well, I guess I'm kind of torn between Plato and Aristotle, because Plato, there is an absolute truth that we believe because we have a foundation.
Gotta pick one, can't pick both. Sorry. You can't have multiple personalities. You'll end up in the hospital.
Yeah, I'd have to go with Plato.
Okay, Plato. All right, what about you?
Socrates.
Interesting, Socrates. All right.
Aristotle.
Aristotle, what about you? Aristotle, okay. What about you? Socrates, okay. What about you? Socrates, what about you? Tabitha, you gotta pick. Who do you want to be today? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle. This is just hypothetical. It doesn't mean you agree with them.
Okay, maybe
Plato. Okay, very interesting. We got a good divide all across. So now this altar is open if you want to. No, I'm just kidding. Very, very interesting. So that's what people were dealing with back then. They didn't have the Bible. They didn't have the Word of God. So all of a sudden, these philosophers are coming up and asking these questions, and before our religion. So we have Judaism, we have Gentiles, and so we're now being forced into this this questioning of why do we do what we do. Okay, they're now starting to, these Hellenistic type of religions are starting to be not compromised, but questioned or challenged. Thank you. So that's what this time period is dealing with. And later we're going to learn about Philo of Alexandria and how he morphed his own Judaic beliefs and with philosophy to kind of give like a hybrid of things into philosophy that still kind of show up today in the way people think and ask questions.
So you said they didn't have the Bible. The books from the Old Testament.
The Torah, sure, absolutely. But if you're a Jew, yes. But if you're not, why would you read them?
From that perspective.
Exactly. So you have to realize that there's still multiple religions. Not everybody's Jewish. So you're coming into that, sure, yes, Jews can absolutely do that. But everybody else who's just focusing now on the myths. So Greeks, they believed in myths. They believed in legends, Hercules, things like that. So we have to take that into consideration. Okay, now you're walking away from gods and you're now bringing into your own mind. You can answer your own questions.
But do we know if those guys, if they read the Torah?
That's a great question. I don't know. ChatGPT? I'm just kidding. I'm sure we can find out, though, but I don't know. So philosophy is now spreading. Greece has been inundated with philosophy, and now philosophy is being taken elsewhere. We now have a Roman influence. So philosophy became more practical and action focused. The Romans put a more emphasis on ethics, how to live and be well, how to be a good citizen. That was their hyper focus. Self-control, duty, and discipline. So these are all things that the Romans took from it. So they took a little bit from here and they started adding it into their culture. Then later you have the medieval period where you're starting to have a Christian influence. Philosophy enters a new world, the church. Dun, dun, dun. Thinkers begin to combine Greek philosophy and biblical truth, and this is what we're going to get into later. And philosophers of the time are Augustine of Hippo, which we will cover as well, and then Thomas Aquinas. And we're going to go over these two and how they started to mix philosophy in the church and the history behind that. Our last slide. So, modern philosophy, there is now a shift in thinking, a new direction, trusting human reasoning. I think, therefore I am, which was the famous quote from René Descartes. He believed certainly that certainty begins with human thinking. If I can think, I am. Interesting. So this is quite a shift. Immanuel Kant, he taught that human knowledge has limits. Sorry, but you have limits, buddy. We cannot fully know ultimate reality just on our own. So there became more of a less focus on God's revelation and more focus on human reasoning and independence. So what did this open the door to? Skepticism, relativism, and human-centered thinking. So this kind of starts coming into where I can almost be my own God. Okay, so we can figure this out on our own. Question: do you see this in today's world? I think, therefore I am. I can figure out my own reality. My truth versus your truth. This is my truth. If I hear that one more time. That's your truth, but I have my own truth. Okay, interesting. Is there an actual truth? Is there an actual fact? Well, my experience says something else. Okay, interesting. So we do see this in today's world. Does anybody else have any other examples they could bring up? How any of the philosophical ideas or ideologies come up in today's world? Like, I have a friend who believes that he can find God in nature. Yeah, like, I believe in God, I believe in Jesus, but I can feel God more when I'm out in nature and his creation than I can in a church. Like, kind of. He's not worshiping, like, the creation. Like, he knows there's God, and he believes God is Jesus, but he, like, feels it more when he's out in nature than going into a church. Which to me, it's like maybe that's like an accountability submission issue. Maybe that's just kind of I haven't. Trees don't call you out. Exactly. Yeah. I don't feel convicted by trees. Never. It's not really my thing. Okay. Anybody else maybe have another example? Sure, Emery.
Yeah, I'd say the whole thing about like morality now.
Ooh.
Like all a joke. I mean, even all the stuff about like abortion and stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, well, it's my body. It's
Yes.
what I want to do. It's my decision.
Yes.
But it's like, okay, you're not really respecting like the overall moral truth of the fact that you're killing someone.
Exactly. Yeah, that totally brings in a question: what is life?
Bad girls don't kill our babies.
Oh,
person if you have children. Like people use the excuse of, yeah, I will never have a child because the world is so bad, and if you have children, you're bringing your child suffering by birthing them. And
Yeah, I'm sorry. When was it good in the world to have kids?
So, sister,
Like just the
married
90s?
and bear children.
Yeah.
Challenge you.
I agree with human rights 100%. I believe my body, my choice, and the body that is within your body that you're growing is a body, and it is their choice. That baby is not you, it is another body, and they have human rights because they are a human. That brings up the question, so when does human rights start? If you're saying when you're breathing or when you're able to speak or when you're able to have a thought, well, okay, well, what about somebody who got in a terrible car accident and is now like a vegetable? He can't talk, he can't speak, but he's able to see you, when does, it brings into that question human rights and what is life? Absolutely. That just get me.
IQ 120 plus, and then you're fine.
Okay, so none of us? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Kidding. Sorry, no, I'm playing.
But just this very basic question, I mean, I don't know, I would think you don't have even to be a Christian to decide things like this. And,
I heard one, of course, scrolling on like Instagram. I saw one where it was saying, what was it? It was saying, it just left my mind. It's not a life until, it just left my mind. Jesus is like, you're not saying that right here. Anyway, it'll come back later, and then I'll tell you. Yeah, so, that's it. When a fetus is wanted, it's a baby, but when it's not wanted, it's a clump of cells. And I'm just like, oh my goodness.
magic spell, I want you.
Is that not sick? We're all a clump of cells. Did you not know that? I think we missed that in biology. We are all a clump of cells. Yeah.
And like imagine telling a mother who's like just lost her baby that you're grieving over a clump of cells.
Exactly.
Like it's a double standard that changes based on the emotion of the people.
Exactly, yeah.
It's like, come on.
We're just trying to make everybody feel okay about their decisions. Yeah, very sad, very, very
Nice,
sad.
this, I don't know what is in English, this trisomy 21, this Mongol, what's the English word? This disabled person.
Oh, Down syndrome.
Yeah. And whenever I see guys like this, or recently a young boy, there's different stages, probably you could be hit very hard or whatever, but those guys, they just come at you and they caress you, and we need more people like that in the world. They might not be able to sustain themselves throughout life, but we as society, we can help them, the necessary things, because they cannot work, but they bring love in a way, most normal people.
Yeah, but unfortunately, certain parties of government do see them as a strain on the society. So that's also like the other thing. Like I don't know if you've ever followed recently what's happening in Canada when somebody is needing extra assistance medically, they're now giving them the option of euthanasia. Just take yourself out. Don't be a strain on the system. And so it's like that is so heartbreaking. Like what is the value of life? You have to be completely perfect, or else you're just going to be a strain, and you should just get rid of it. Like it's so heartbreaking. But that's where it's coming to. It's like, what's the worth of a life?
If you open it for discussion.
Yeah.
I didn't understand your question. You mentioned about some people who hug and support.
People with Down syndrome.
Down syndrome. Okay.
They're often very lovely, and they saw it twice in their life, and it's crazy when they look at you, they enter a room and they come to you and
I
hug
believe
you,
it's
and
Iceland, where if you have an ultrasound and you find out that your baby is more than likely going to have Down syndrome, you have to abort it.
you have to.
You have to abort it. I think it's Iceland. Yeah.
well, 80 years ago, there was a man who thought the same thing and did the
have
same
to,
thing.
it's
Where are we
Well,
going?
I would say,
people? Where
okay,
are we going?
if it's a thing about Iceland where they just don't want that, then like you have to move. But they can't just say you have to abort your baby.
Certain man, AH, he did the same thing. A certain man 80 years ago, he thought the same thing.
Yeah.
He did the same thing.
It's abortion for for Down syndrome is legal and highly commonplace, with 100% of pregnancies diagnosed with being the condition. Pregnancies are aborted after prenatal testing. In Iceland, after the 22nd week. So they'll go up to the 22nd week just to make sure, and then, yeah, is that not crazy? You have no worth. That baby has no worth because of Down syndrome.
And then they say, okay, for this Down syndrome people, that they have a hard life. Okay, I mean, there are different stages or hard cases or whatever. But usually, also when they see them, you see them. I mean, they are happy, they are smiling. So okay, they need assistance because they can't
It's still
earn
a
their
life.
money or
I
whatever.
mean, no matter what, it's still a life.
What is very sick is CBS News, which is a very popular like news anchor station, says their slogan, you know, like how, not slogan, but like titles of articles, like, you know, if you word it this way, it sounds this way. It says, why Down syndrome in Iceland has almost disappeared.
Wow, that is wow.
The law in Iceland permits abortion after 16 weeks if the fetus has a deformity, and Down syndrome is included.
Also, any kind of deformity.
I guess now that, well, that's what CBS is saying, but I know for sure Down syndrome, you have to get rid of the child or leave. Yeah.
So
Is
it's
that
not that like they're getting healthier and things are just going
No.
better for them. They're actually actively.
Yeah, but they're like, okay, this child is gonna add so much more cost to our social medical system, and it's just so sad.
I think this highlights this constant pursuit of human beings thinking that they can be smarter than God, you know? Sometimes get rid of errors in nature. We see this everywhere. Nature, food, whatever. We think that we can outdo God.
Yeah.
God made everything perfect. There is a reason behind it we don't understand. But then here come human beings and, oh, I think we can do this better. You know, let's make food grow faster. Let's
Yeah.
put fertilizers. Let's
Yeah.
change the cells. Let's, genetic modification, whatever it is.
Yeah,
And
that's- yeah.
it always has bad consequences.
Yeah.
And like, until when are we going to get it? You
Yeah.
know, just let it be. God is God. You know, we can never outdo God.
Yeah.
It's just for me.
Let's sing a song. Let it be. Was there some?
So yeah, back to our point, it's
Why did
very present in today's society.
why did that make me sick?
That's like a question people ask.
Yeah, that's so hard. So with that being said, this is the end of it. Do we have any other questions? Lesson today?
Sorry, you said program. Is it the one and only we have on philosophy, or
I'm sorry, say it again.
is it the one and only lesson we have on
No,
philosophy?
we're gonna have a philosophy lesson next
Yeah.
month as well, and I think that's the end of this semester. So you guys are almost done.
Wait, it's only one more day?
No, two more.
2 more?
Yeah, May and June.
Okay. I don't think I have you guys for June, but I know for May I do.
Oh wow. This has been a journey. You guys. This has been a journey. 4.
Guys, you've been through it. To sacrifice the Saturday all day, you guys did it. Where did Marvelous go? He missed my whole left. What? He's not doing well. But
Yeah, he seemed like he wasn't so.
he's sick?
Noticed he was.
Interesting. All right, guys, you are off to lunch.
Actually,
Leave that on your mind.
actually, this was a test for us because we should run away from philosophy according to the Bible. He did the right thing.